In today's video, we'll be looking at the Liquify feature inside of Affinity. So before starting, if you want to follow along with this tutorial, please find the link for the image in the description. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please hit the subscribe button for more tips and tricks related to Affinity. Now with that said, let's start the video. So before beginning, first of all, let's understand what Liquify is. Liquify in any professional image editing software allows us to distort and deform different image elements or design elements inside of our project. So in this video, we'll be looking at two ways to apply the Liquify effect. First of all, we'll see how to apply the Liquify effect destructively, and secondly, we'll see how to apply the Liquify effect non-destructively. So to apply the Liquify effect destructively, first of all, I'll navigate to the right and select the background layer inside of our layers panel, and make sure that our background layer, it has a type of pixel type. As you can see with this particular icon, that is indicating that this particular background layer or background image is of the pixel type. And now after selecting the background layer inside of the layers panel, make sure that you are currently and actively selecting the move tool. You can also use the shortcut key of V, and let's navigate above in our contextual taskbar and click on Liquify button like so. After clicking on Liquify button, now you can see that our interface has changed and Affinity has navigated us to a new Liquify UI, where we can see we have different tools on the left that allows us to distort and deform and apply any form of Liquify effect. And on the right, we have different kinds of sliders as well as options that we can tweak in order to apply a good Liquify effect to our design element. Now, first of all, let's explore the mesh panel right here, which has different mesh related sliders and options. So for example, the first thing that we have is divisions properties. If we decrease the value of division property, you can see that it will divide our individual grid cube to a much more smaller value, making it much more smaller like so, as you can see in our canvas in the image. And if we increase it, then you can see that now it has divided with a much larger value, and it is helpful in order to make our grid much more visible. So I'll simply click here and set the value to 28, which was the default value, and hit the tab key. And now after setting it to 28, we can also change the color properties as well. So I can simply click and drag like so in order to change the color properties. I'll set this particular green color for now. And the next thing is we can also control the opacity like so. So I'll hit the opacity all the way to 100% for now. So I think the color is a bit faded with the background. So I'll simply click and then change the color to something else to make our grid much more visible. So I'll set it back to the purple color like so. And now you can see that our grid is much more visible to how it was before. So now let's see our first tool. And our first tool is this particular tool, which is called Liquify Push Forward tool. You can also access it with the shortcut key of P. So now let's try distorting our balloon in this particular image. So I'll simply click and brush over the balloon like so in order to distort it. As you can see here, it's distorting the shape of the overall balloon and applying the Liquify effect inside of our balloon like so. And now after we have distorted our balloon, the next thing that we can do is we can check out the reconstruct mesh slider. So if we simply click and drag the slider all the way to the left, you can see that it will undo the balloon element to how it was before, by giving us much more flexibility with the values or numerical data that we can use to add any new numbers in order to have much more flexibility and control while reconstructing the mesh or undoing the distort effect. So we can simply click and drag it all the way to the right like so, and I'll bring it back to its normal default value, which was 100% like so. And the next thing that we can also do is we can reset the mesh in order to undo it entirely. The next button that we can also use in order to undo it directly is the reset mesh button. So if we simply click on it, now you can see that it has resetted our distortion effect entirely back to how it was before. So the next thing that we can also do is we can load the mesh or we can save the mesh. So if we save the mesh and if we load that mesh to a new image, then it will apply the same distortion effect inside of the new image. So we can also hide and unhide the mesh if we click on this uncheck button, you can now see that all of our mesh has been hidden. And if we click on it again, we can again see our mesh clearly visible on top of our image. So now I'll simply hide the mesh. And the next thing that we can see here is we have also the history panel right here. So if we simply click and drag the history slider all the way to the left, you can see that it will revert or send us back to how our balloon distortion was before and revert it back to how it normally looked before. In addition to that, you can also see that it has recorded individual steps inside of the history panel like so, with the recent effect of reset mesh we have applied right here. So inside the history panel, Affinity has provided us with much more control on how we can revert or undo our application of the Liquify filter inside of Affinity. So now let's navigate to the left and check different tools that are available for us, beginning with or starting next with Liquify push left tool. So it is a little bit extreme tool, an aggressive tool. So for example, if I zoom in here and simply drag it like so, you can see that after we click and drag, it is aggressively applying or distorting the thread of the balloon altogether. And if we hold down the Option key, as I'm using Mac, and if you're using Windows, you can hold down the Alt key. And if you simply click and drag like so, you can revert back or reverse how this particular tool works by simply clicking and dragging on the screen or on your any design element like so. So the next thing that we have is the twirl or liquefied twirl tool. We can also access it with the shortcut key of T, and it simply twirls different elements. So for example, if I simply click over this particular point, you can see that it is twirling the thread altogether. And if we want to twirl it anti-clockwise, then we can simply hold down the Option key. And if you're using Windows, you can hold down the Alt key, and now it will twirl anti-clockwise altogether. And if we hold down the Shift key, along with it, it will twirl much more slowly. As you can see here, it will twirl much more slowly if we simply hold down the Shift key. So the next tool that we have is the Liquify pinch tool. Let's select the Liquify pinch tool. You can also use the shortcut key of U in order to select the Liquify pinch tool. And what it basically does is it will make different image elements larger if we apply this particular tool. So in here, let me increase the size of the brush first, and then let's simply click in this portion like so. And right now you can see that the Liquify pinch tool will enlarge our shape like so. As you can see, it has been enlarging subtly. So right now you can see that our balloon is getting much more larger after we have applied the pinch tool from our history panel. So we can simply apply it more by simply clicking and dragging over the balloon like so. And it is getting or inflating much more larger. And the next tool that we have is the Liquify punch tool. So the Liquify punch tool, on the other hand, simply allows us to make things smaller. So if we simply click and brush over the balloon now, you can now see that it is being much more smaller in size. So this is how it works. And the next thing that we can also do is use the shortcut key of Option in the Mac and Alt in the Windows, and then drag or brush over it in order to behave it like the Liquify pinch tool. So if we use the shortcut key of Alt, then it will simply change its feature to its opposite form inside of Liquify. So similarly, the next tool that we have is the Liquify turbulence tool. So basically what it does is it simply makes things distort in a zigzag way. So if I zoom in over here and then simply decrease the size of the brush first, and if I simply paint over the thread, you can see that it has made things really distorted in a zigzag way. So that's how it works. And I think it would be much more applicable and suitable when creating paper texture effect inside of any images. Similarly, we can also use the hand tool, or you can use the we can invoke or call the hand tool by using the shortcut key of spacebar and pan around our images like so in order to view any other portion or areas of image. So the next tool that we have is this particular tool here, which is Liquify Mesh Clone tool. If we select the Liquify mesh clone tool. It is simply similar to the stamp tool that we often use inside of professional image editing tools like Affinity and Photoshop, where we can simply take the sample of one area and then apply those sample to other areas. So if I hold down the Option key and take the sample here, which has been represented or indicated by the cross sign that indicates that we have taken the sample of that particular area, then we can, after taking the sample of that particular area, we can simply apply the same liquify effect to other areas as well. As you can see here, it's applying the same liquify on the other bottom part or bottom half of the thread. Similarly, the next tool that we have is the Liquify Reconstruct tool. So if we select it, so this tool basically allows us to reconstruct it by using a tool. So if we simply drag it over the other parts of the thread or to the other portion where we have applied any form of liquify, then it will revert back to its normal form. So let's zoom out now and let's simply pan around like so. And now let's do another thing, or let's check out the another tool, which is this particular freeze tool or the liquefier freeze tool. If we simply brush over any areas of an image, let's say if I don't want the half portion of the balloon to be distorted in any form or shape, then we can simply freeze that area. So if I simply brush over that particular area with the freeze tool like so, as you can see, we're simply brushing over with the freeze tool like so. And now if I select any of the other tools, for example, let's select the twirl tool, increase the size of the brush, and then simply apply the twirl effect to the balloon right here. You can see that it is applying the twirl effect on the right hand side or the right part of the balloon by not impacting on the areas where we have froze by using the Liquify Freeze tool. So in order to erase the Liquify Freeze tool, all we can do is we can simply select the Liquify Thaw tool and then simply erase the freeze brush that we have recently applied. So this is everything about the Liquify UI. In destructively editing or applying any liquify filter inside of a design element or image. So now, after we are satisfied with the liquify effect that we have applied, we can navigate above and click on apply button. And now you can see that it will successfully apply that particular liquify filter to this particular background image layer where we have applied the liquify effect destructively. Now next, let's check how to apply the Liquify filter non-destructively inside of Affinity. So to apply the Liquify filter non-destructively inside of Affinity, let's select our next layer, which is this particular image layer right here. And this image layer is actually the grids on the background of this image. So to apply Liquify filter non-destructively, after selecting the image layer, let's navigate to the top and then select pixel menu item right here. Inside of the pixel menu item, let's hover over new live filter layer. And inside the new live filter layer, let's navigate to distort. And inside the distort, let's select liquify. And as soon as we do that, if we click on done, you can see that it successfully applies a new liquify filter inside of the image layer. So this particular thumbnail of liquify filter indicates that this liquify filter has been applied as a live filter and is non-destructive. So if we simply uncollapse this layer, you can see that the liquify layer has been added inside of the image filter. So now we can simply double click on this particular liquify layer and then again go back to the UI of liquify. Now let's apply a twirl liquify effect to the grid at the background of this image. So I'll be selecting the twirl tool and then simply clicking at the grids like so in order to apply the twirl effect to our grids in the background like so. And you can now see that the twirl effect is being applied to our grid together like so. And we can also rotate the twirl effect anti-clockwise by holding down the Option key and then clicking over at the grid like so. And now after we have applied the twirl effect, we can navigate up and click on done. And what it does is it will apply the liquify filter or liquify effect non-destructively by allowing us to re-edit or revise our liquify that we have recently applied. So if we simply click on this particular liquify thumbnail inside of the layers panel, now we can again reconstruct the things that we have done or undo the things that we have done by selecting the reconstructor tool and then simply brushing over the areas where we have applied the drill effect. So in addition to that, I would also like to show you this particular tool of Liquify Mesh Clone tool and how it works inside of the Liquify UI. So first of all, again, I'll select the drill tool and then first of all, I'll brush over the areas of the grid in order to apply the drill effect. As you can see, it is completely applying the drill effect at the top areas like so. And the next thing that I'll be doing is select this particular tool of Liquify Mesh Clone, and by holding down the Option key, I'll sample the areas from the top left corner of our grid image. And after taking the sample, what I can do now is simply brush over the other bottom half areas of the grid like so in order to apply the same effect by taking the sample of the Liquify where in which we have applied at the top portion. So we can simply apply it similar to how the clone and stamp tool works in professional image editing softwares like Affinity and Photoshop. So we can also again select the reconstruct tool, or we can simply drag this reconstruct mesh all the way to the left to bring or revert our grid back to how it was before. So now I'll simply navigate up and select done. So I'll use the shortcut key of Command plus 0 in order to fit our image to the screen. So overall, this is how the Liquify feature works inside of Affinity. If you find this video helpful, please click on the like button, and for more tips and tricks related to Affinity, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching this video and see you on the next video.